What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to the Christian Perspectives 2004 YouTube channel. And in today's video, it's a pretty simple one, kind of straightforward in a way. And the video for today is why Christianity is the one true religion. So, religion. There are hundreds of different belief systems all around the world and have various different teachings and ideas about God or human morality and so on and so forth. When you study the world around you and study science, history, archaeology, philosophy, and the basic complexity of human life, it tells us that there must be a creator, a God. So, since we know that there must be a God, but how do we know which religion is true, if any of them? So, my point there is the first thing you must acknowledge before digging deep into which religion is true is you must sit back and study history, science, philosophy, archaeology, examine the simple complexity of not just human life, but of life in general, and look at how the world came into existence, and that clearly tells you that there is a divine mind, a higher power behind all of creation. A God-like figure. The very creation of the universe, like the Big Bang, literally tells us that there must be a creator. So once you acknowledge that, okay, I see that there must be a creator, there is indeed a God, now how do I go about which religion is true, if any of them? Because there are some that don't believe in any of the religions. They believe in a God, but they don't believe in any of the religions. Those people would be called theists. So, when you begin studying religions, this is where it is crucial to thoroughly study each religion and approach them with an open mind. Study figures like Muhammad, Krishna, the Buddha, Zoroaster, etc. However, one key thing you will find when studying religious figures is that there is one figure that stands head and shoulders over all others, and that is Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus is the most influential person to have ever lived. Many philosophers and historians and even non-Christian sources state that Jesus' teachings are the greatest moral teachings ever, and tend to cite the Sermon on the Mount, as one person put it. All other teachings by man are just mere footnotes in comparison to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It is also crucial to point out, ever since Jesus entered into the world, everyone is required to believe something about him. Buddhists believe him to be another enlightened teacher. Muslims believe him to be a prophet of Allah. Atheists and theists believe him to be a great moral teacher. Everyone is required to believe something about Jesus. So you see how Jesus and his life revolutionized the world. It changed the world forever. So the fact that Jesus is the one name that everywhere you go in the world, everyone will know that name, and the fact that, every person that draws breath and lives long enough to form any form of rational mind, they are all required to believe something about Jesus. Every belief system believes something about Jesus, and it's typically something positive. I will say that, typically. So what exactly is it, though, that makes Jesus so special and different from every other person that has ever lived? Well, Jesus is so special because of his claim to be God in the flesh. Sure, while others in history have claimed that, however, Jesus is unlike the others. Jesus never abused, manipulated, took on sex slaves, or anything like that in his ministry, and actually lived a celibate life, something other false teachers who claim to be God never did. Jesus also, in his teachings, never contradicted himself. He taught things that a true loving God would teach. Love your neighbor as yourself. Pray and love for your enemy. Wage through life with love and peace and patience, and so on and so forth. I'm not even scratching the surface. Then you have the fact that Jesus performed miracles. Jesus, during his ministry, met many of people whom he never knew and people that never knew him, and he performed miracles, or should I say, he knew them, but the people he met didn't know him is actually how I should have put that. But performed many miracles, giving sight to the blind, the speechless able to speak, the deaf to hear, the lame to walk, raising the dead. Then you have the biggest event that sets Jesus apart from all other historical and religious figures: his resurrection. Everyone, for the most part, excuse me, everyone universally agrees, for the most part, except for mainstream Islam, that Jesus was crucified and died. But as the Gospels state, on the third day, Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to his followers and many others for a period of 40 days, and then in front of a crowd of hundreds ascended into heaven. So all of this shows the uniqueness of Jesus, what sets Jesus apart from every other religious figure and historical figure to ever exist. So all of this sounds really good. But how do we know that these events truly happened? Well, this is where outside sources become important. Writings from well-known Jewish and Roman historians talk about Jesus and the rapid growth of Christianity, including the belief of his resurrection. Many of these historical documents either predate the New Testament or were written by people that still had living memory of Jesus. And it is key to point out that some of these writers were not Christians who wrote about Jesus. So based on that, we know Jesus existed, and any claim otherwise is totally absurd. So if you're a Jesus mystic, you are absurd in your thinking, because all of the historical evidence clearly tells us that Jesus existed. So to sit there and say that he didn't is the dumbest viewpoint ever. He obviously existed. History confirms that. Archaeology confirms it. Like, wake up. Jesus obviously existed. So, like I said, any claim that Jesus didn't exist is totally absurd and a contradiction of first century history. As for the reliability of the Gospels, they are dated back to the appropriate point in history, with the Gospels being written during the time Christianity was rapidly growing in the mid and late 1st century, and we have Greek manuscripts of all 4 Gospels dated back to the 1st century, along with many archaeological finds, including the town of Nazareth, the pool of Bethesda, and etc., that backs up key certain locations that are mentioned in the Gospels where major events like miracles took place. Now, some skeptics will argue that just because the locations are correct, it does not mean... It does not necessarily mean that the miracles truly happened, but it is key to note when Jesus performed these miracles, there were hundreds of people present, and these miracles were performed by Jesus on people who had no previous knowledge of him. If Jesus were a fraud, then it would have been very easy to point out this by saying Jesus knew these people, but the simple historical fact is these people did not know Jesus. They had never seen Jesus a day in their life. There's only maybe a handful of people that knew Jesus that he performed miracles on. Most of the people that he performed miracles on had never placed their eyes on Jesus until he performed a miracle on them, or told them about stuff that they did in the past, like the woman at the well, for example. And these people Jesus healed immediately became followers of his because of the miracles he performed on them. And Jesus' number of followers grew massively to the point that he was being worshipped on his way into Jerusalem for Passover. Then you have the crumbling of the pagan world around Israel. That also points to the reliability of Jesus. The pagan world accepting Christ was practically zero. Yet they did accept Christ, and Christianity even eventually took over the Roman Empire peacefully. And there are historical records of teachings and proclamations and martyrizations of Jesus' followers proclaiming his resurrection and his divinity. And the simple fact is, people are not going to willingly die over something made up. The Gospels even recite the apostles did not believe in the resurrection until they physically saw Jesus, talked with him, and ate with him. And the more Jesus' followers were persecuted, the more Christianity grew. Plus, you have historical records of many Jews abandoning worship on the Sabbath day of Saturday to worship on Sunday, Resurrection Day. And the only historical event that can explain this is indeed the resurrection of Jesus. So considering all of these overwhelming, and I only scratched the surface, there's even more. Do the research on your own and you'll find even more pieces of evidence. So considering all these external sources and basic exploration of human logic and reasoning, we can clearly see that, yes, Jesus did perform miracles and did rise from the dead. So in conclusion, Christianity is the true religion, because unlike all other religions that have either questionable teachings, historical or scientific inaccuracies, Christianity does not have these issues. The history, the archaeology, the science, basic human rationality, they all back up Christianity. And the rapid growth of Christianity long before the New Testament was written backs up the authenticity of Jesus, not only as a historical figure, but also as the fact that yes, he performed miracles, yes, he was crucified, and yes, he rose from the dead and appeared to hundreds of people for over a 40-day period. It is also important to point this out. All other religions are based on human effort. You have to work your way to heaven according to Islam and Judaism. You have to work your way to nirvana according to Buddhism. You have to work your way to a good reincarnation like in Hinduism. But Jesus takes an axe to those ideologies. As being God, he entered the world knowing we could never reach him on our own, so he reached down to us and lived the life we could not, died the death we deserved for our sins, and then rose from the dead, creating reconciliation. It is by the grace of God alone do we find salvation, not by human effort. It is only in Christianity where we are already saved by everything God did. It is now our job to have faith in Him, to follow Him by loving all people, no matter how hard it may be, loving God and loving one another as much as we can with all of our heart is what Jesus said were the greatest commandments. And this is the simplest way to put it. Christ died for us, the sinner, so we can receive salvation. This is the purest form of love and grace, the greatest display of God being proactive within His creation. So, I hope it's pretty clear to you. Whether you're a Christian watching this video, or whether you're a Muslim or a Buddhist or an atheist, I hope you can see now the truth of Jesus and why true Christianity, following Jesus Christ, is the one true religion. And as I always say so many times, follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. Thank you all for watching, and God bless.